What's up, everybody? It's been a while since I streamed, so there might be some technical difficulties. The audio might be messed up. My window capture might be messed up, but I'm just going to run with it and see how this one turns out. We're going to be checking out the untold story of America's most insane prison escape. I just got out of prison, and I didn't escape. I actually did my time, and I'm on probation right now, so I felt like watching something kind of prison related, I guess, to remind me of why I don't want to go back. So yeah, let's check this out.
November 26th, 1994, Thanksgiving weekend, the Darrington Unit, south of Houston, Texas. At 9:15 p.m., the entire prison went dark. The lights snapped off, alarms roared through the cell blocks, and officers rushed toward the towers with rifles drawn. Inmates yelled from their cells. The chaos building. In that moment, 3 men were already in motion. They had been waiting for this night, counting every patrol, every shift change, every gap in the system. Their plan was direct. Cut through the first fence, scale the second, and
Oh, I
run
think I've
before the
seen this
guards
one
could
before.
surround them. It was
I
a
think I
gamble
remember
few
this
had
one.
ever attempted at Darrington, one of the most violent units in Texas. By the end of the night, 2 men would be dragged back in chains, but the third one would make it further than anyone thought possible. His name was Dennis Wayne Hope, 22 years old,
Oh,
serving
Dennis.
an 80-year sentence for armed robberies. The
Don't
state of
fuck this up,
Texas had
Dennis.
decided his life would end behind razor wire, but on that night, he proved them wrong. This is the story of how Dennis Wayne Hope broke free from one of Texas's most secure prisons, evaded a statewide manhunt, and forced the system to chase him across state lines.
The fuck just happened?
Dennis Wayne Hope was 22 when the bus carried him south to Darrington Unit. He had been convicted of
Man, on my way to my to the actual prison I was going to be doing my time at, because at first when you go to prison they send you to like a reception center, um, and then they decide which actual prison you're going to be doing your time at. It was like a 12-hour bus ride, and you're shackled up the whole time, your hands and feet shackled up, and it was fucking freezing. It was snowing outside, and there's no heat on the bus. It was fucking brutal. By the time I actually got to prison, I was fucking pissed off. Like I was just in a bad mood. I think a lot of people when they first show up to prison are like nervous, but the fact that I just showed up like irritated and pissed off and like ready to fight, I think kind of worked in my favor because I was by the time I actually hit the prison, I was just fucking fed up and pissed off. Like I genuinely was not scared at all. I was just pissed. And I actually think that worked in my favor.
aggravated robbery. The judge gave him 80 years. There was no realistic chance of parole. The prison was known across Texas. More than 2,000 inmates were housed there.
Damn.
Many were serving life or decades for violent crimes. Officers warned new arrivals that Darrington was not a place to make mistakes. The reception was immediate. Prisoners shouted at the new men as they walked in. They called them fresh meat.
Fresh
They made
meat.
threats from the runs. Hope kept his eyes forward. He followed the line through intake. His head was shaved. He was given state clothes and a number. He was assigned to a cell and quickly learned the rules. Do not stare at another inmate. Do not touch property that is not yours. Walk in line. Carry your tray level. Those who broke the
Yeah, nobody steals in prison, which some people might find surprising. Like, it just doesn't happen, man. Like, you get a locker, and my locker was always filled with food, and obviously you get a lock on your locker, but I didn't even know the fucking combination. Like, I never needed to know it because nobody was ever going to touch anything in my locker, which is pretty cool. You think around a bunch of, criminals, you would have to keep an eye on your shit, and maybe for some people they do, but for me, I didn't have to. I didn't even know my locker combo. So Yeah, man, you don't steal in there. There's immediate consequences for your actions, which is
Rules were
good,
tested
I
or
think.
attacked. Hope stayed quiet and
If you're in
watched.
a
He
political
worked in
yard,
the
that is.
kitchen. The job meant long hours, but it gave him movement and routine. He learned schedules, delivery times, and the pattern of officers on shift. There, he met another inmate, Harry Decker. He was older and calm. He did his work without trouble. Hope respected that.
Harry's
Hope
got that
filed
look
an
in his
appeal
eye.
to reduce the harsh. He spent time in the law library, but nothing
Harry
changed.
looks like he's killed a few
The
people.
appeal was denied. The
He's
sentence
got that
remained.
1,000-yard stare.
That night he lay in his bunk and realized he might never leave prison alive. Life inside Darrington was designed to break men down. The schedule never changed. Wake up before dawn, count, line up, eat, work, count again. It repeated every day. The unit was surrounded by fields and guard towers. Armed officers watched from above 24 hours a day. Floodlights covered the fences at night. Razor wire lined every barrier. The message was clear: no one leaves. Inside, the violence was constant. The cell blocks held gangs that controlled drugs, money, and protection. Disputes over debts ended with knives made from steel or sharpened wire. New inmates were tested as soon as they arrived. Those who failed to stand their ground were exploited. Hope kept to himself. He stayed out of arguments and avoided gambling. He worked in the kitchen and learned that routine gave him some safety. He moved food to the cell block politics. Harry Decker worked beside him. Harry was older and respected. He gave Hope simple advice. Don't lie.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think politics are kind of a good thing. They can be bad too, because it's basically just like you have your different cars, and cars are pretty much just gangs. We call them cars, but it's pretty much just a fucking gang. But yeah, as soon as you come in, we're checking your paperwork. We want to make sure you don't have any weird charges or anything like that. So I kind of like that. I like knowing that I'm not gonna be around anybody with like weird charges against women or children, or you don't want to live with people like that. So there's some things that are actually good about being on a political yard. I think that's one of them. Checking paperwork.
Don't steal from other inmates, and don't rely on promises. Hope listened. In a place where most words meant nothing, Harry's advice carried weight. But even with the routine, the threat of violence never left. The riot in the mid-90s proved that. One moment the wing was loud with shouting. The next, inmates were bleeding on the floor. Guards used force to regain control. Bodies were carried out on stretchers. Hope saw it firsthand. The riot made him understand how little control he had over his own survival. If the wrong group targeted him, there would be no warning, no appeal, no chance. From that day forward, Hope stopped thinking about years or decades. He began to think about opportunities. He didn't know how or when, but he knew he had to find a way out. He began by collecting information. Every movement inside the unit followed a pattern, and Hope paid attention to all of it. He watched how long the chow hall doors stayed open during mealtimes. He counted the minutes between tower checks. He timed the shift changes of officers at the perimeter. The prison had a standard response whenever an escape was reported. Sirens went off, the towers locked their sights on the fields, and a 5-mile perimeter was thrown up around the unit. Patrol cars and tracking dogs covered the area. Hope saw it happen when other inmates made attempts. Some were reckless, others poorly planned. None of them got far. But each failure gave him more information about how the system reacted. That was when he set himself a rule. If he ever went for the fence, he had to be outside that 5-mile perimeter within 30 minutes. If he couldn't, he'd be caught. Hope began running every day with that time in his head. He treated every yard session as a test. Could he cover the distance fast enough? Could he maintain his pace without breaking down? His background in cross-country gave him an advantage, but prison had taken away years of freedom. He forced himself to rebuild his endurance until 5 miles became routine. The next step was tools. The fences were reinforced with razor wire. Cutting through them with bare hands was impossible. Hope arranged a quiet deal with an inmate who worked maintenance. In exchange for extra food from the kitchen, he received a pair of wire cutters. They were small enough to be hidden, but strong enough to slice the wire. He tested them behind the kitchen, where a storage cage held the ice machine. With no one watching, he clipped a strand of wire. The cut was clean. The tool would work. He returned it to the freezer, hidden beneath boxes.
So obviously, I'm pretty sure these guys inevitably get caught and get sent back to prison. But there's got to be some stories out there where people escaped from prison and actually never got caught again. I want to see a couple of those stories. They're probably very rare, but there's got to be a few. There's got to be a few people that did it right and just managed to, fly under the radar, maybe change their name. Well, I guess they would have to change their name. That's obvious, but there's got to be a few of them.
Boxes of meat. To give himself more leverage, he later added copper pipes over the handles, turning them into extended grips. But getting through the fences wasn't the only challenge. Dogs were used on every manhunt. Hope prepared for that as well. He cut strips of prison blankets to tie around his legs, both as padding against razor wire and as a way to mask his scent. He stole socks from the laundry and filled them with cayenne pepper from the kitchen. He believed the spice would throw off the dogs long enough to buy distance. The escape route came together by chance. One afternoon in the chapel, he picked up a church brochure left on the floor. On the back was a map of the area surrounding the unit. It showed roads, landmarks, and a set of power lines that ran toward Houston. That map gave him the missing piece, a clear route once he was outside the wire. He studied it carefully. The objective was simple: clear the fences, sprint past the 5-mile search perimeter, and cross Highway 288 before the net was fully locked down. Once past the highway, he could follow the power lines north, away from the prison. Hope shared his plan with Harry Decker. Harry had been steady in the kitchen. He listened and agreed. Both men knew the risk. Getting caught meant years added on top of their sentences or being shot outright. But Harry also knew what Hope did. 80 years left no other future. Later, a third man entered the picture, Jason Montgomery. He worked near the boiler room and had knowledge no one else did. He knew where the generator was located. If that generator could be shut down, the lights over the fences would go out. The towers would lose visibility, even for a few minutes. That advantage could be the difference between freedom and a body on the ground. With Jason's involvement, the plan gained shape. The sequence was clear: take out the power, cut through the first fence, climb the second, and run until the 5-mile perimeter was behind them. By late 1994, the planning was finished. Hope had the cutters modified with copper tubing for extra leverage. He tested them on a hidden fence behind the kitchen. The wire snapped clean. He knew they would hold. The blankets were cut into strips. Each man had a set to wrap around his legs and waist before climbing the razor wire. Socks filled with cayenne pepper were ready, meant to be pulled on over their shoes before the run. Hope stored them in a box in the kitchen, mixed in with old laundry that no officer checked. Every piece of equipment had a hiding place. The cutters stayed inside the freezer, buried under frozen meat. The blankets were rolled and kept behind a stack of mott handles. Nothing was left in cells where a random search could uncover them. Timing was rehearsed in silence. Hope ran daily in the yard, pushing himself until 5 miles in under 30 minutes was a guarantee. Harry kept pace as best he could, slower but committed. Jason, who wasn't a runner, was told to focus on his role with the power.
That guy looks pretty fucking serious too.
The escape would not happen on a normal weekday. Hope chose Thanksgiving weekend. Fewer ranking officers would be on duty. The night shifts would be handled by staff who wanted nothing more than a quiet post and a quick relief at dawn.
That's smart.
In the week leading up to the attempt, Hope watched for changes. He studied tower rotations and head counts, making sure no new measures had been added. He double-checked the path from the kitchen to the yard, noting every gate and lock they would pass through. The last 2 nights before the attempt, Hope barely slept. He knew there would not be another chance if this failed. The cutters could not be replaced. The plan was already whispered about more than once. If an officer caught a hint of it, the lockdown would be immediate. By Saturday evening, November 26th, everything was set. The tools were hidden in their spots. The route was memorized. Each man knew his task. When the lights went out, they would move. Saturday,
Game time,
November
baby.
26th, 1994, Thanksgiving weekend.
Put
The
your
prison
fucking
was
big boy
quieter
pants
than
on.
usual. Senior staff were off duty. Night posts were handled by fewer officers. It was the window Hope had been waiting for. At evening count, he kept his head down like everyone else. The cutters were hidden in his shoes, pressed tight against his ankles. Blanket strips were tied under his clothing, ready for the fence. He carried nothing else. Anything extra could slow him down. When the buzzer released his section, he stepped into the corridor. Harry was already moving toward the meeting point. Jason appeared from the opposite wing. They didn't speak. Words were unnecessary. The boiler room door was unlocked, as expected. 2 inmate clerks were inside, checking gauges. Jason walked in first, acting like it was routine. Hope followed. He pulled a screwdriver from his waistband
Are they gonna
and
fucking
ordered
kill
them to
him?
the ground. Harry tied their hands with strips of cloth.
Oh.
The takeover was quick. Jason moved directly to the generator. He loosened the main fuel line. Hope turned to the backup
I thought they were about to just fucking smoke those guys. Like, hey, wrong time, wrong place, buddy. Sorry.
unit and disconnected it. The effect was immediate. Lights across the yard went dark. Towers lost visibility. Alarms triggered within seconds, echoing across the compound. Hope didn't wait. He pushed the cutters into his waistband and left the room at a run. The others followed. Officers were shouting already, radios crackling with reports of a power loss. They reached the first fence. Hope dropped to his knees and forced the cutters into the wire. The copper handles gave leverage. He clipped section after section until a gap opened wide enough to crawl through. He pulled it apart with his hands and slid under. Harry followed, then Jason. The second fence stood directly ahead, taller, lined with razor wire across the top. Climbing it was the only option. Hope threw himself upward.
So I guess the guards in the tower right there just didn't see them. It's pretty fucking lucky. Because this is an actual layout of the prison, I think. I don't think they just made this animation up. I think that's actually how the prison looks. And there's a fucking tower like 5 feet away. I guess they were just like, fuck it, man. Let's just run it.
His blanket strips caught the wire but held. He swung a leg over, shifted his weight, and dropped to the ground
Is that
outside.
an actual photo
His
of him
coat tore,
escaping?
but he was free. Harry went next. He slowed halfway, his clothing caught in the wire. Hope looked back and saw him stuck at the top.
God damn it,
Shots
Harry.
rang out from the
I
tower.
knew you were gonna fuck this up.
Dirt kicked up around them. Without hesitation, Hope ran back. He grabbed Harry by the
No,
arm
leave him.
and pulled hard
Leave
until
Harry.
the fabric ripped loose.
Harry's gonna fuck this
Harry
whole thing up.
tumbled
I
over
already
the
know.
side. Jason climbed last. He cleared the top as the gun.
I haven't seen this, or if I did see this, I don't remember it. Something tells me Harry is gonna be the weak link. Harry's gonna fucking do something stupid, I think. Maybe not. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but something about that guy. He can't even hop a fucking fence.
Fire grew closer. By now, the towers had confirmed movement. Orders were shouted into radios. Sirens changed pitch. The escape was no longer hidden. Hope hit the ground running. He sprinted toward the open field beyond the fences. Harry struggled behind him.
God damn it,
limping
Harry.
from the fall. Jason was slower still. The gunfire followed them into the dark. The escape had begun. Every second from that point forward would decide whether they live or die.
Split
Now,
up.
the second fence was behind them.
Split up, or at least fucking get away from Harry.
Ahead lay open fields. Floodlights were out, but the towers had already fired. Radios crackled across the unit. Officers were moving to block every exit. Hope didn't slow. He sprinted into the dark. He knew the response. Within minutes, a 5-mile perimeter would be sealed. Patrol cars, dogs, and armed teams would close the area. If he didn't clear that line in half an hour, he would be caught. Harry was struggling after his fall. His limp slowed him. Jason was further behind, winded, and out of rhythm. Hope pushed forward alone. He had no choice. The ground was flat and exposed.
Hope, you need to leave these two behind. Get them away from you. They're fucking slowing you down. Just get away from
Every
these two.
step felt visible. Shots cracked from the towers. Some struck dirt within yards of him. He kept his pace,
The fuck was that?
focusing only on distance.
I like that shot. It's just like a fucking action figure in the middle of a field. Where was that?
Visible. Shots cracked from the towers. Some struck dirt within yards of him. He kept his pace, focusing only on distance. Behind him, officers shouted to hold the line. Within minutes, searchlights mounted on vehicles swept across the field.
Oh shit.
Engines roared. The sound of dogs carried in the air. Hope veered toward the power lines he had memorized from the map. They would guide him north toward Houston. Crossing the fields, he kept moving. He didn't stop for Harry or Jason.
Good.
He didn't look back
Fuck
at the
those
towers. The plan allowed no time for hesitation.
Come on, Hope.
The
It's
perimeter
every
was
man for
forming.
themselves at this point.
Officers spread along the outer roads. Patrols set positions at intersections. Radios confirmed sightings. The net was almost closed. Hope ran harder. He had trained for this exact moment. 5 miles in 30 minutes was...
Hope fucking deserves to escape. I'm gonna stop shitting on the other two, but it's like, come on, man. Why are you even bringing these guys? Like, I'm sure they were critical to the mission and I just wasn't paying attention. But, you know, Hope wants this. Hope wants to do this. He's been training. The other two have been fucking smoking cigarettes and jerking off. Hope's out there fucking running every day because he knows he's gonna have to be in good shape. He's gonna have to outrun those dogs. The other two barely made it over the fucking fence.
the
Leave
rule.
him in the dust, Hope.
If he could stay ahead of the dogs and reach the highway, he would be outside the net. The lights of Highway 288 came into view. Cars moved along it. Unaware of the escape underway less than a mile away, Hope dropped low and crawled the last stretch, keeping his body below the headlights. When a gap opened, he crossed on all fours. From a distance, he looked like an animal moving.
So he left the other two behind? Did that already happen? Because they're only talking about Hope now. I think he mentioned something about like the other two falling behind. Good for you. Now you have a fighting chance, Hope.
Through the grass. No vehicle stopped. No officer fired. Once across, he stood again. The 5-mile line was behind him. The prison was still in chaos, but he was out.
But I guess the only way they're able to tell these stories is if the person eventually gets captured. Because how else would they know this shit? So you're not going to see any documentaries about guys that escaped and then never got captured, because then the story would never be told. Unless it was like a couple guys and one of them got caught and the other one didn't, then the one who got caught could tell the story. But I didn't think about that. So if somebody escaped and then never got caught, you would never really hear the story. You would hear from the prison workers' perspective, but you wouldn't.
Days. Hope was the only one who cleared the perimeter.
I knew it.
From that moment, he was officially a fugitive. Hope cleared the highway and kept running.
Keep going,
He
Hope.
didn't stop until the lights of the prison were far behind.
Attaboy.
By then, the dogs were loose and vehicles were combing the area, but he was already outside the net. He moved cautiously through back roads and brush until morning. At first, he had nothing but the clothes on his body and the cutters he had carried out. No food, no money, and no safe place to hide. Within a day, he made his first move. On a rural road, he flagged down an elderly man driving a pickup. When the man stopped, Hope climbed inside and ordered him to drive. He didn't have a weapon, but he acted as if he did. The man complied. Hope took his wallet and the truck, leaving him on the roadside. The wallet gave him a small amount of cash. It wasn't enough. He needed more to stay ahead of law enforcement. In a nearby town, he walked into a store he had robbed before prison. At the counter, he pulled out a BB gun he had bought from a local shop. It looked real, and that was enough. He ordered the clerk to empty the safe. The money went into a bag. He left.
What is he wearing right now? Did they say that and I just didn't hear it? Is he still just like in orange, or I guess he's in prison, and in prison you don't wear orange, or at least I didn't. You have kind of like we wore khakis and like a gray shirt every day. So I guess that wouldn't really stand out. So maybe he's just in like some prison clothes that look like regular clothes. Because he didn't escape from jail, he escaped from prison. So he doesn't have an orange jumpsuit on, or at least I don't think he would.
Left before alarms could trigger a response. It worked. He repeated the method at other stores across Dallas and later in Memphis. Quick entries, fast demands, cash taken, and out. The BB gun stayed hidden until the last second. Clerks assumed it was real. The money gave him mobility. He bought clothes, rented cheap motel rooms, and stayed on the move.
Hell
In
yeah.
Memphis, he used stolen cash for nights in bars and casinos. He dated women, spent freely, and lived as
They need to make a fucking movie about this guy. This guy is living it up. This is a crazy story.
if the manhunt wasn't closing in. But the robberies drew attention. Police linked the pattern to his past crimes. Investigators confirmed he was active again, and that meant he was close. Every robbery narrowed the search. Hope didn't care. He was free, and
Hope
he
don't
was
give a
determined
shit.
to enjoy it while it lasted. The first sightings came quickly. Convenience stores and small businesses across Texas began reporting late-night robberies. Witnesses described a man wearing dark clothes, often with his face partially covered. The method was consistent. A weapon shown or implied, money demanded, no unnecessary words exchanged. It was the pattern of someone moving fast and leaving before police could respond. Investigators compared the reports. The height, the build, the mannerisms all pointed to Hope. Surveillance footage from grainy cameras supported the link. Each new robbery confirmed that the escapee was still out there and still desperate. Evidence started to accumulate. One stolen car was abandoned outside of Dallas, and another was later discovered in Tennessee. Fingerprints inside the second vehicle matched Hope's prison records. That gave investigators a clear sign. He had made it out of Texas and was heading east. By the time they traced him to Memphis, the operation had shifted. Local police joined state investigators. Hotels, rental agencies, and pawn shops were canvassed. Hope had to keep moving, but his trail was visible to anyone piecing it together step by step. The key break came from a phone call. Hope had reached out to a woman in Dallas. Records showed he was using payphones in Memphis to contact her.
So this is where he fucks up. God damn it, Hope. You gotta leave the drugs and women alone. If my 20s have taught me anything, it's that drugs and women can fucking ruin you. God damn it, Hope. Hang up the phone, Hope.
Surveillance teams zeroed in on that link. When she agreed to cooperate, they asked her to page him. Hope called back. He told her he was at a club called Denim.
Now this is the part of the story I don't like. You know? It's like I like watching 3/4 of Goodfellas, and I don't like watching the ending. I don't like when it all falls down. Same with Casino. I like the first 3/4, and then I just fucking turn it off. I don't like when everybody goes to jail and starts snitching, and it's just a sad story. It's real though. This is how these situations turn out, especially when you start involving other people.
And diamonds. He even described what he was wearing. A cowboy hat, jeans, boots, and a
Oh, he's a
western shirt,
cowboy.
and said he was driving a Jaguar, punctured the tires to stop him from fleeing. They coordinated with local officers, set positions, and prepared to move in. Inside, the nightclub was packed.
This place looks lit.
Music and crowds worked both for and against the arrest.
Yeah.
Hope blended in, but the noise also let officers close the distance without being noticed.
What is
Step by
this?
step, they moved through the crowd until they had him in sight. When the order came, they acted at once. Hope resisted, trying to pull free, but the struggle lasted only seconds.
No!
He was wrestled to the ground and handcuffed on the floor of the club. After 90 days on the run, Dennis Wayne Hope's escape was over.
These bitches have no goddamn heart. Goddamn it, Hope.
When Dennis Wayne Hope was taken into custody in Memphis, the U.S. Marshals wasted no time. He was booked locally, then transferred under heavy guard back to Texas. For officials, the response was to make sure it never happened again. Hope was returned directly to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. From the moment he arrived, his status was clear: escape risk, high threat. He wasn't placed back in general population. Instead, he was escorted into solitary confinement. The administration
He's gonna do the hardest fucking time now. He's gonna be in solitary for fucking years. Which, you know, I did a little over a month in solitary, and it actually, I'm pretty sure it changed me. Like, if you do a significant amount of time in solitary, and where I was at, there's no books, there's nothing. You don't have a tablet, you don't have a book. It's essentially like a holding cell. And they kept me in there for like 40 something days, man, and I was losing my fucking mind. I really feel for this guy, man, because he's gonna be in solitary for a long time.
administrative segregation wing known for holding the most dangerous inmates in the state. The conditions were strict and absolute. A small concrete cell, roughly 6 by 10 feet. A steel door with a narrow slit for food. One bed, one toilet, and little else. Lights remained on around the clock. Time outside the cell was limited to 1 hour a day in a small caged yard, and even that was in complete isolation. Contact with others was minimal. Meals were slid through the slot. Movement inside the prison meant full restraints. Handcuffs, waist chain, leg irons, and armed escort. Every interaction was controlled, and every privilege stripped. The official reason was security. After 90 days on the run, robbing businesses and stealing vehicles, Hope had shown he could outmaneuver law enforcement. The state decided he would not get another opportunity. Years passed in this cycle. What was meant as a precaution became permanent. Solitary confinement became his world. By the mid-2000s, Hope had been locked in isolation for more than a decade, one of the longest continuous solitary confinements in Texas. By 2017, Dennis Wayne Hope had spent more than 23 years in solitary confinement.
That's fucking borderline inhumane. That is fucking, he's probably insane now. Wow.
Hope began to argue that this cruel and unusual punishment and the 14th Amendment's guarantee of due process. The lawsuit attracted attention. Prison experts noted that long-term solitary confinement had devastating psychological effects. Studies showed that extended isolation caused depression, hallucinations, anxiety, and in some cases permanent mental damage. Hope's case put Texas in the spotlight. Few states in America kept men in solitary for so long, without review or chance of release. In his filings, Hope detailed his conditions. He described living in a cell where he could take only a few steps in each direction. He explained that he had no access to meaningful rehabilitation, no opportunity to re-enter the general prison population, and no clear path out of solitary. He argued that he had been effectively sentenced to live the rest of his life alone in a box. The state of Texas responded that his placement was justified. Hope, they argued, remained an escape risk because of his history. They claimed he posed a continuing threat.
It's been like 25 years. I mean, I could see like, maybe a year in solitary. Even that is a lot. It might not sound like a lot, but a year in solitary is fucking crazy. 2 decades, over 2 decades, 2.5 decades. I'm pretty sure he fucking learned his lesson. Like, Jesus Christ.
Threat to security, and the only way to contain that threat was indefinite segregation.
No.
The case moved through federal courts. In 2022, the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals considered his appeal. The court did not dismiss his claims. Instead, it acknowledged the seriousness of keeping a man isolated for more than 2 decades. The judges ruled that his lawsuit had enough weight to proceed, a rare win for a prisoner challenging solitary confinement. Hope's case then reached the U.S. Supreme Court in 2023. His lawyers asked the justices to rule on whether such extreme long-term isolation was unconstitutional. The court declined to take the case, leaving the Fifth Circuit's limited ruling intact. Still, for Hope, it was proof that his voice had reached the highest court in the country. Even though no sweeping decision came down, the case shined a light on a system that had gone largely unquestioned. Advocacy groups pointed to Hope's situation as an example of how solitary confinement could become permanent punishment without oversight. Today, Dennis Wayne Hope remains locked away, his world confined to a space no larger than a parking spot. But his story continues to echo far beyond those walls. And with that
was a sad story, man. That was a sad fucking story. Free Hope. I forget what he did to get locked up initially. Probably something horrible, I'm sure. But yeah, 20 something years in solitary. I mean, there's only a few crimes I think that warrant something like that. And trying to escape isn't one of them. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to see how this stream turned out. Hopefully it wasn't too shitty, but I've been away for a long